So, what actually is an abomination? If we can start by trying to get some dictionary definitions, as it were, out the way, worldly views, if you like. What the common themes are: something is abominable is especially something that's especially deplorable, repugnant, sinful, corrupt, or depraved. Loathsome, disgusting, contemptible. All of these words that are describing something that is undesirable. So, for example, dictionary.com gives an abomination as being anything abominable, anything greatly disliked or abhorred, an intense aversion or loathing, detestation, or a vile, shameful, or detestable action, condition, habit, and so on. It gives an example of spitting in public is an abomination. Whereas the Collins English Dictionary gives a personal thing that is disgusting, an action that is vicious, vile, and so on, intense loathing. Very similar words and concept there. The word has a particular strength in biblical context, as we'll see in the next video, if you want to join me there. However, it often refers to a very strong objection, something that corrupts or offends the senses of, or I should say perhaps, a sense of what is right. If you're religious, that may be framed in terms of what is godly or righteous, or in keeping with the divine plan, or holy. If you're not religious, that's often going to be framed in moral terms. So, what society seems as being decent and appropriate, perhaps, for mature adult family relations, let's say. Yet the moral police, as we might call them, feature in the lives of most of us from a very young age, and are fully capable, I think, of filling the hearts of those of us who may err in their view in terms of our sexual orientation or identity, contrary to the supposed right way of being. At least this would be the view of the moral police, or perhaps the majority. And for those of us who find ourselves in this erring minority, shall we say, it can really trigger great sense of dread and even shame. I read recently a beautiful foreword of a book by a French publisher. I'll put the detail in the description for this video, called Ladies or Gentlemen. It was a book of photographs primarily, collected over a long period of time, of cross-dressing in the movies and theatre as well. Really quite a collection. And the foreword was written by the actor John Lithgow, who, among other anecdotes, recalled a time when he was, I think, 13 or 14, and was at scout camp, and for whatever reason he had either volunteered or got nominated to play the part of a damsel in distress in some sketch for sort of camp theatre entertainment that was being put on by the boys. And he was just describing just the fear ahead of this, that the flushes of red in the face, the thought of doing this, standing out in front of this group of his fellow boys, all boys there, I imagine, and being not just teased, but probably thrown all sorts of insults, whether some of those were meant to be jovial or not. His appearance as a girl, and apparently it was a very makeshift costume and not to be taken too seriously, but perhaps hinting very slightly at some mannerisms or the role of effeminacy, marked him out as kind of like a mutant in the pack, one to be called out and shamed. And I suspect that little anecdote is something that those of us who might recall moments in our earlier life when we perhaps either did something similar to John there, or we did our best to try and hide desire to do that, for want of being seen as being effeminate or whatever, and being picked out and lampooned, and being very embarrassed at the prospect. Probably that triggers something for quite a number of us. It certainly did for me when I read that story. So, getting away just from the embarrassment of a young chap who dares to slip on a dress, or even alluding to be not like other boys. Why are abominations so contemptible and worthy of shame in the eyes of so many? There are probably many reasons. One I've mentioned before is the idea that in traditional societies where men were the ones that were the hunters, the gatherers, and the fighters, uh, all men were expected to play their part, to be physically able and ready to take on the role of a soldier and to go out and fight. And with that, perhaps the associations of being manly, however we want to define that, and not being girly. So really quite a strong distinction there in terms of what behavior was considered to be appropriate. I suspect that is a factor that still underpins the consciousness, as it were, of some of our cultures. Um, the ideas of some that there should be a separation between men and women, fathers and mothers, playing a role in their view, healthy growth of the family may be another, and that to be a cross-dresser, to be trans, to be or to have any kind of perceived sexual perversion, to be gay, for example, is going against that nature, and something they may rightly or wrongly judge as being an instinct, something they believe is inborn, and therefore, perhaps, in their view, should be an instinct for others as well. But perhaps the greatest influence is the religious teaching, and particularly in the Western world, particularly from the Judaic Christian mindset that underpins a lot of the ethics, the teaching, the morality of the societies that I grew up in, the world I grew up in the UK and in many other Western countries. You don't have to be religious to pick up on this influence. There's a lot of the sort of uncodified, if I can call it that, morality and strongly conditioned sense of what is right and wrong for us who've grown up in these societies. That's certainly been my experience and will be the topic for my next video.